We all laugh when Homer Simpson says, "No!" And it's especially funny when he does it again. "No!" It's not funny when you do it or when I do it. When we repeatedly make the same mistake, like there's something wrong, and there's a fix for that. It's called SOPs, Standard Operating Procedures. Kristi Kandel and me, Erik Stenbakken, are going to talk about standard operating procedures and how that can save you the pain of being Homer Simpson in your own life. Join us on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast as we talk about the beauty and freedom of standard operating procedures.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing. I'm your host, Kristi Kandel, and I'm a developer, real estate investor, multiple business owner, and I teach people how to become real estate developers in their own backyard. And today we're going to get more into the nuances of what does that all actually mean? And how do we manage these different hats that we wear in the companies and the people that we work with? Erik, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's an early podcast recording here. We're separated by 2 time zones, for those of you who might not know that. So mid-morning for Kristi is earlier morning for me. Getting rolling here.
I get to cheat and have multiple cups of coffee before coming in, and Erik's like, "Yo, I just woke up."
Yeah, well, I'm a decaf guy anyways, though. I came to that conclusion a while back. I do like it, but that's what it's part of my secret sauce for me anyways. Well, today we are going to talk about, well, the good, the bad, and the truth. And this is a truth about real estate investing that isn't, well, it's not really good or bad. It's just a truth. And it is something that we don't like to do because people don't like routines, especially the kind of people who, like you and I, Kristi, are entrepreneurs. We quit our jobs so that people wouldn't tell us where to be and what to do. And I had somebody recently tell me, it's like, I can't wait to be independent and not have anyone tell me what to do. I said, the problem with that is that now all your clients tell you what has to happen. Now, the benefit is you get to do that a bit more on your terms, but you do not have wild freedom. Wild freedom they have a word for that, and it's called chaos. And that is not your friend when you're dealing with your time and your money. So today we're going to talk about SOPs. Now, the first time I heard that, I was like, I mean, what are you talking about? And that stands for Standard Operating Procedures. It's just a shortcut for, this is the way we do things. Another way that I put it is, this is solving problems that you will have, but solving them in advance. That's really what it is that we all have repetitive problems. And I say problems in the sense that, like, they're challenges, they're things that we have to figure out, right? It's not that they're just repetitive disasters. If that's your case, wow, I don't know, man. Yeah,
if that's your case, then maybe go back and look at your systems and processes and see how you can mitigate some of those fires. But yeah, I've had so many people ask me, they're like, well, what even are systems and processes? And it's not that it needs to be this elaborate scheme of things. It's just, think about what you do repetitively every day, every week, with every property, with every client. And anything that you do more than once, maybe you should think about documenting it to where the next time you're not reinventing the wheel, but you go, here's my checklist of things to do.
Right. So let me give a really super simple example of a way that I used an SOP just yesterday. Because it can sound complicated. It can sound like, man, I don't know if I really want to do this. But when you encounter the same problem, just like you said, Kristi, more than once, more than twice, you're starting to think, okay, wait a minute, this could come up again. And if it's a problem or a challenge or a situation that will come up again, having basically a plan, right? You could also say a plan. So if that's less intimidating to you than standard operating procedures, then have a plan. Okay, so here's what happened. We had the pastors of our local church. I like them all, right? Then they heard that we've got a property that sleeps 16 here in the Rocky Mountains, just outside of Rocky Mountain National Park. And he said, we'd really like to do kind of a leadership retreat at your house. Hey, don't worry, we'll pay the cleaning fee. Which, if you've got an STR, you know what's happening next, right? They're like, well, what it means is they don't want to pay rent, right? But they'll be generous and pay the cleaning fee, which, hey, look, they're trying to be generous, right? And I said, well, what do you think? And he said, well, when are you thinking? And I said, well, we've got several teachers in the family and students and stuff like this of the leadership. So what we need kind of midsummer, peak season, right? And so guess what? This is not the first time we thought about this situation. So normally, Well, I should say not normally, because it's been normalized for a really long time, because we have an SOP for this. We have a plan for this. We talked about this before we opened our first STR. We talked about what are we going to do for friends and family, because they will ask. And we thought, okay, my wife has a huge family. Now they're all in California. They don't necessarily travel outside of California a whole lot, but we thought, oh, wow, this could get interesting. So we said, here's our deal, is that we are going to offer a 20% friends and family discount. Just pretty much that would even apply to some times, except for peak holidays and except for June, July, and the first 2 weeks of August. There are no friends and family discounts then. We do not do that. It is simply not available for that Thanksgiving, Christmas, and so on.
Well, Eric, you're a jerk. Why? You have a property that you could allow people to use. Why wouldn't you give them a discount? What, do you look at this like a business or something?
This is a business. And, it's interesting. I was reading just this last week, and it said, if you want to find your friction points, look at your resentment. That will tell you something. And I thought, you know what? That's really true. Because if you had a thing like this and you were to do this and resent it, that means you have a sore spot. You have a friction point. And so what will you do to work with that so that you do not have the resentment? And in our case, it's the resentment plus we have to pay the bills, right? So we have some months called mud season in the mountains where there is virtually nothing going on. There are just almost no bookings whatsoever. The difference between low season and high season can be a factor of about 800% difference, right? It's massive. And so we have to make the money during the peak seasons. That's not an option, right? That's what carries us through the mud season, and that's what pays the bills in the off time and stuff like this. So we have a standard operating procedure, and we had a policy, a plan, if you will, and just said, here's what we can offer you. We've got some dates just still here in April. We got a few in early May, and then we're on to October. We'd be glad to set you up then. And this is an interesting thing, is that standard operating procedures are a way to say yes. We think about them as ways to say no. It's like, oh, that's a way to say no. It's a way to say no. It's a way to say yes and to do it easily and comfortably. The joke among house flippers and preppers here, house preparations, not that kind of prepper, but getting houses flipped is agreeable gray. It's funny because why? That if you don't know, agreeable gray is a paint color. And it just was the standard color that people were picking to put on walls. Consumers wanted it. It was an easy thing to do, look good with just about everything. And guess what? You don't have to use any of your decision-making muscles to do it. No decision fatigue. If you're like, shoot, what color did we paint that place? We got to do some touch-up. Easy, agreeable gray.
Okay.
You already know what to do. So, Kristi, that's an example of a standard operating procedure, a plan to solve something in advance. In your world, what are some examples? First of all, we'll talk about some examples. Then we'll how do you build them? We'll get into that later. What are some examples of standard operating procedures in your world?
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of building one right now. Obviously, we have this Real Estate Pessimist podcast, but we are now finally also launching our local real estate developer podcast, and that'll come out May 13th is the first one. So very excited for that. And now that I've learned how to use the platforms and get them to link and load and understand that, now is the time to start outsourcing that part of the work. So I've been documenting everything from recording of the podcast to doing the editing, the reels, and how to upload that to the different platforms to get them to release on certain dates, how to draft the copy that goes with it on all the different platforms. And I'm not going to lie, it's been a minute since I drafted a process. And I keep dragging my feet. I'm like, I know this will set me free, but I also know the deadline is far enough out. I've probably got it 75% done, but I know the outcome. And the outcome is I show up, I record, and then everything else happens afterwards, as opposed to me spending the hours doing it. So I know that the benefit is more than there. And it's also just a matter of, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. The person on the other side will have questions no matter what, even if I think it's perfect, even if I think I have the video and the written instructions. So it's get it 80% done, get it out the door, answer the questions, make sure it's there, and let it go. So that's one of the current ones that I'm doing.
that's all. The reason I was laughing is like, look, there will be mistakes. We'll have to redo this. I actually saw a reel of, I think it was an elementary school teacher who had written, it could have been high school, it could have been adults, let's be honest here, had given her students the assignment to write the steps necessary to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Which is an SOP. How do we do this? And she picked up a loaf of bread, still in the bag, takes the peanut butter out on a knife and spreads it on the top of the bag on the bread. And immediately I'm like, they never actually said to take the bread out. They just said, take the peanut butter, put it on the bread. Like, well, yes, literally, that's what happens. So if you build SOPs and somebody puts the peanut butter on the outside of the bag of the bread, you're like, shoot, yeah, you should have known that, but also I should have said that. You get better by practice. This is a process that gets better by iteration, not by idealization, right? Just whatever it takes.
I was going to say, when I first built the software, so we have development project management software. So when we're going through a development project, we have I spent a very long time detailing out the exact steps to go through a project in every single facet, from where stuff's saved in Google Drive and examples to draft emails to step-by-step checklists.
Right.
Well, when I drafted it the first time, I used way too many words and put every tiny little possible step to where my team wasn't even reading it because there was way too much on one task to comprehend. So we overhauled it probably 2 times that I did it. And then the 4th and final time, I had them do it because I knew we were close and I knew if they owned it, then it would, and working as a team, then it would come out in the best way possible because they were the ones in the weeds doing it. So you will continue to iterate depending on who's using it, what it's for, and that part is completely fine.
Right. You mentioned something about this, and I want to make sure that it doesn't slip past reinforced. And that is, this gives freedom. Is that SOPs really are for the purpose of getting things done right and freedom of time, because when you have good SOPs, you can then turn this over to someone else. Now, here's a pro tip that I learned from Valentina Brega. She does, I think, if you can help me remember the name of her website, I'll give her a shout out here. But basically, it's a higher trained VA, I'm almost sure. And so what she said is, you can have your VA write the SOP as they're doing it.
Yeah.
In other words, if you say, okay, first you do this, then you do this. And if they document this as they're doing it, you're not the one doing it. I mentioned this to a friend of mine. He said, I just hired somebody and he has the most interesting stuff. He buys and sells really high-end, world-class Irish flutes. That's what he does. He studied Irish flute performance in Ireland, and he's an instructor in this. And it's a very, very, you talk about the riches are in the niches. I'm not so sure about the riches, but it is definitely a niche. And so there's a way that you clean these high-end Irish flutes, and there's a way you don't. And so he had somebody new on board, and he said, well, I just got to teach him the SOPs and how to do this. And he's got to write, I have to write this out for him so that when he leaves, the next person, I said, hey, Blaine, why don't you have your employee write out the SOPs? You're telling him how to do it, but then it's like, now you document this. As he goes, if he tells his assistant how to do it, and his assistant writes it out, and if he goes back and reviews it, he will see those things like the peanut butter on the outside of the bag of bread, right? Like, you kind of missed an important step here, but he's not drugged down into the minute by minute, line by line of all this other stuff. That's the other person, because let's be honest, the person who's putting this together for the very first time is aware of the things that we assume. We're like, well, of course you open the bag of bread first. That's just what you do. Well, we do that because we've done it 1,000 times. But somebody who hasn't, they're going to think, actually, that's really important. And somebody who's never done it before would not know that. Now, obviously not the bread thing, but there are some certain other steps. I want to give you another example of SOPs and how this is important in the real estate investing world. I've got a friend of mine, let's call him Joel, because that's his name. He's a great friend of mine. And I've gone through 2. Yeah, right. I've done 2 series of SOPs with him. The first time I did that was with digital photography. He is a world-class photographer. If you Google photo arc, just Photoark. You will find him. He's been working for National Geographic since, I don't know, over 30 years, and he does the project PhotoArk. Well, they were going to go launch this thing. They were going to go digital. And I was ahead of him in the digital world, not in the professional world, not in the artistic world. The guy is amazing, right? But I was an early adopter with the digital. And he said, I don't really know how to manage these digital files. What do we do with that? I said, hey, come to my office. I will take you through step by step of how you do this. My wife and I saw him. We toured his fabulous, beautiful studio. And by that, I mean, it's like an old thing that he had rehabbed, right? It's an old building that you would love it, Kristi. It's like the thing you do. He took an old building that was beautiful in its original form, that had been modernized, and I don't use that as a compliment, over decades, and he restored it to its beauty. So we're going through the studio, and he said, you know what's interesting is that we have documented, I think it was close to 17,000 species, not photos, 1,000 species since we did that digital workshop. And he says, we have never lost a digital file because of the process. It was, the way he described it is wonderful and colorful, and I'm sure far more drastic than I did it. But he made it sound like, and you shall not do this. And like, okay, I mean, I don't think I did that. But here's the deal. It was a strict process. Here is your workflow. You take it out of the camera, then you do this, then you do this. Here's how you name the files. Here's how you duplicate the files. Here's how you back them up. Here's how you, et cetera, et cetera. So over a period of, I don't know, going over 20 years now, they have not lost a single digital file. And
That's
he does
incredible.
international assignments all the time, right? That's what SOPs do for you. He said, if you ask me to find a black rhino that we photographed in 2005, I could find it for you in about 2 minutes using no special software, no special anything that needs updated, just by the system that we're using.
That takes me back to when we were doing, before I had started my company, and we were working with Jiffy Lube, and they were doing this massive remodel of all their locations. And I remember they'd given us these requirements for how we were to name files. And I thought, well, isn't that presumptuous of them? Like, they're trying to tell us how to do our job. And these file names are so, yeah, these file names are so weird. And I've got to have like this whole like thing posted up here so I know exactly how to do this every single time. And there was, I don't know, 20 to 50 files per project. So it was kind of cumbersome.
Tedious, right? Annoying.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't understand why you would need this. Well, come to find out, when you're doing hundreds of projects and you're trying to pull up a specific file for each project, oh yeah, you want the name to be correct. We went on to use that with a lot of our national tenants, with CVS Pharmacy, with Family Dollar. And guess who incorporated how to name files into every company and every system and process she has ever done since then? This girl. Because guess what? No matter which team member is doing it, if I want to know where the elevations are that were approved at the entitlement hearing for a project, I don't want to guess from 20,000 files and iterations that are in there and not know which one was the final stamped approved one, so I can get it out to bid. So yes, even though some things seem tedious or not quite sure, when you see the full ramification of the why and you feel the pain of, oh my goodness, I can't find this and I just spent 8 hours searching for something, versus, oh, I can find this in 2 seconds. Big difference.
100%.
Current pain now, what is it like? Do the hard thing now so it can feel easy later, or just put in the work now?
Yeah. And so spatially, I want to put this in a different perspective in case people are thinking like, oh man, that sounds so tedious and it's like such a hassle and so rigid. Okay, so if somebody wanted to find my little buck pocket knife that my sister gave to me for my birthday years and years ago, here's how that would look. I would say you go to my house, here's the code to get in the front door. You go in the front door, turn to the right, first bedroom on your left is mine. Then you walk over towards the bathroom and there's a highboy dresser. It's an antique. And you open the top drawer. And in that top drawer at the very front edge is going to be my pocket knife standing vertically. And it would take you about as long to find that as it did for me to tell you. Now, if I had just said, I need you to find a pocket knife that my sister gave me 20 years ago, it's in my house, go. And that's all I told you. Right? You're going to be like, well, I got to tear the place apart to find it. That's Kristi's point here, is that you don't want to have to tear your place apart to find, where is that W-9 from that vendor? Oh my goodness, where is that? Or where's the survey? I know we got a survey. And it's like, okay, is that in this project? Is this in this folder? Is it even on this computer? I don't know. That means headache and hassles for you. In the long-term rental world, I had this experience just last night. Talked to a new potential renter. And he said, well, I'm just kind of curious, how does this unfold? What's the next steps here? Well, what he doesn't know is I have an SOP and there's a folder. And in that folder is a stack of all of the documents that I have to send to new renters. And I have a matching template for an email that goes along with it that explains what each of those is in order. They match alphabetically. So guess what? When I attach all of those files to the email, all those attachments are in the same order as they're described in the email. And so I only have to copy paste, literally. I copy that original email that says what I'm doing. Here's all the files attached here. Looking forward to hearing from you. Fill in the name. Really, it's that simple. Now, not only does that save me time, but this has legal implications.
Yes.
Right. So if you're fighting this kind of stuff, like, I don't want to do SOPs, I'm a creative kind of person. It's like, guess what? You can't get creative with what documents you do and do not send to potential renters. The safety with lead, whatever that federal document is, like that has to go to your renters. Right. And you have to have a record that you sent it to them. Now, if this person doesn't turn into my renter, guess what? I sent it anyways. It cost me about 5 minutes of my time for conversation and copy paste. There are other things in your business that have to do with, let's say, taxes or with accounting. Like everything you do in your real estate investing business should be some form of SOP, unless you are totally inventing everything from scratch every time. And even then, I don't buy it. You're going to have some SOPs. Kristi and I did a podcast about a buy box and how a buy box is essentially an SOP. We're not going to go over that again, but that's what it is. It's an SOP for buying. There's an SOP for accounting. This is what you do.
It's how tax season either seems really easy or it seems like the worst, most terrible thing in the world. And while I still don't like to do taxes, I get them done right away. And it's a piece of cake because everything is in order from the beginning. And yeah, there's all sorts of systems and processes around it. So basically, if it's for me, the more annoying it is, the more detailed the systems and processes are. So I don't have to keep dealing with it.
Right. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to stress over it. You don't have to fight it. And so let me share a super simple SOP that my first accountant built for me. It sounded so simple. I was like, how could this work? But it does. I mean, the guy's a little bit of a genius. He's not only was a CPA when he got my business started, but then he went and got his JD, law degree, and then he went and got a doctorate. And now he's a hospital system president. So, I mean, the guy's got stuff going on, right? And so here's what he did. He had me go buy a small, now this depends on the size of your business, and of course you could scale it, but it's one of those file folders that has a little handle, looks like a lunchbox, right? And he took I was just starting a business. It was an S Corp actually, is how I started out as. And he said, these are going to be the categories on your tax forms. And I had one folder for each of the lines on my tax form. And we labeled those on the little folder. And he said, here's where you put every document that has to do with that line item. At the end of the month, you just go through that little one pocket and you total up the numbers that are at the bottom of that and put it on the sheet at the beginning of that folder. I'm like, okay, I think I could do that. At the end of the year, he said, now take each of those sheets at the beginning of each of those folders and total those all up and put the number at the bottom. I said, okay, I could do that. And you know what he did for taxes? He just took that one sheet at the beginning of each folder, took that number, put it from my sheet onto the tax form, because that's exactly where it belongs. I was like, my goodness, you took this big nebulous, super complicated, I don't know what to do thing down into the small enough steps where like, I know what to do next. And essentially that's an SOP. If you're flipping a house, I don't do that. But if you do, you have that process. Or if you don't, you certainly should. And those lessons that you learn accidentally are usually the most expensive ones. So, talk to somebody else who does it, find out what they do. Like, so you do a survey. We had a guest on here who talked about the importance of getting a survey, why that's a big deal, should be part of your problem solving process. What other SOPs can you think of, Kristi, and how? Let's talk just for a minute how to develop SOPs.
Well, another category that we kind of touched on Airbnbs and short-term rentals a little bit. But even so, we have SOPs around how to manage the guests and people booking. But also on the same side, how do we manage our cleaners, our handymen when something goes wrong?
Oh, right. Massive.
So yeah, and we remote manage. So we set up the systems to where we've got properties in Nevada, Ohio, and Florida. And our property manager actually lives in Chicago. So he manages, the only way we can do that is by having systems and processes and teams in place. So we'll have cleaners at the properties 2-3 times a week. We'll have our go-to, we have these lists set up that says for this market, here's handyman number 1, number 2, number 3, and it says what their expertise is because they all, maybe one's better at electrical, one's better at plumbing, or it's, hey, we have a roof issue. Hey, we need a water heater replaced. And so it's a very clear guidance to go boom, 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 boom. Here's how you solve a problem. And were we going to get into like, how do we build them, or where do you want to go with that?
That's, yeah, let's there are so many ways to do this. Right? I think the main thing is that you do it. There's ways where you could turn on screen recording software and it records your screen and you can send that to someone and say, here's what I did. And it's just like a virtual version of looking over your shoulder, except it has a replay. If you're going slow, you can speed it up or go back and rewatch parts that are essential. It's a pretty straightforward process. One of those things is you could have your assistant, your VA, your employee, whatever it is, you could look over their shoulder and say, do this first, do this first, do this, and this. Now, document this.
I have 2 questions for you because 2 common things that come up. One is when somebody says, well, I can just do it faster myself. And
all the time.
2 is, I've got so much going on, I can't take the time to create a system or process, or I can't take the time to hire a VA. What would you say to those 2 hesitations?
One, I'm struggling with it myself. Okay, I'll be super honest about that. All right, I'm just as human, and Kristi didn't know that, but this is it's a real problem, right? But the more we realize this actually does set us free, it is kind of one of those pain now, and it's not that painful. It's mostly just intimidation. It's that pain now, and it's the freedom later. And I think it's until we get to that mindset, and that's what it is really. Once we get over that mindset of I'm just going to just do it all myself. I'm just going to handle it all myself. Okay, we're dealing with a situation like that right now. We're going to put up a big screen TV in a property that doesn't have one in that location right now. I'm going to put it upstairs on the 3rd floor, make a little theater. And it's kind of like, I could go and it's out of state. I could go and do this, or we can have Anthony do it. And how are we going to do it? Well, guess what? We have bought TVs and installed them before. So we're going to buy it from this vendor. We're going to buy this wall mount. We're going to say, this is about how high we want this thing. Here's the passwords for the Roku, how to get it set up. And guess what? That saves me a trip out of state to do it myself. And when I think of the time savings of that, I think, man, that's pretty massive. And it's the kind of thing you can ease into it. You can do something really small and have somebody else help you. And then you can okay, what about this? All right, no, what about this? One of the things that I would say about SOPs is do look for ways to automate. Every month, well, we try to do it every month, we have a little LLC meeting where the members of the LLC get together. That's me and my wife. And we talk about stuff. And one of the things that is on our, guess what? SOP, I have a form for this. And people are like, God, you're so nerdy. But also, guess what? It gives freedom because on that we walk through, do we want to keep this asset? Is there a pain point with this asset that we know we need to solve, but we haven't? How can we leverage technology to make this easier? Is there a better, all these things that we go through. And one of those that I mentioned is the technology. Is there a way to use automation to reduce friction for us and our customers? I'll give you an example. We were part of the automation with our short-term rentals, which is about 90% automated. It's maybe not 100%, but it is so highly automated. People will say, well, how much time do you spend per guest? And it's like, well, if you don't include the setup time of the AI, most of which my wife has done, right? Not AI, because we're not really leaning into that. Don't trust it. quite enough for that. But triggers, right? And triggers means this: they send a query, bam. Guess what? Our software sends them a reply instantly that says, "Thank you for your inquiry on this. We will be glad to get in touch with you about it. We'd love to have you as our guest." Well, guess what that does? That sends that information through the platform. The platform, let's suppose it's Vrbo or Airbnb, says, "Wow, that host always responds within an hour." Guess what that does? That drives us up just a little bit in the algorithm. That also tells the guest, "Oh, wow, they are interested in me. They didn't blow me off. Like, I sent that just a minute ago and they already replied." And so if they book, it says, "Here's your booking." It sends them an email. "Here's your booking information. Here's the next steps that you do." All of that is automated. Okay. All of that stuff is automated. And we discovered, to talk about how we do SOPs and how we develop them and how they're organic. We realized that about 3 to 4 days before they arrived, guests are a little bit nervous. They're like, where's my check-in instructions? Where's my information? And so what we did is we said, all right, we're going to send an email out 3 days, could be 4 days now, I'm not sure which, with the check-in information. Here's the map, here's the address, here's your code, here's the information for how to get into the pool, blah, 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 all the things, right? It's got the map. All these things are iterations, right? I remember getting a call from somebody, she's driving around like, "We can't find your property." It's 10 at night where they are. And I'm thinking, why are you coming so late? Why are you so lost? I wrote you step by step how you get there. But hey, guess what? If it happens more than once, it's not them, it's you.
Yep.
Right. And so I was like, shoot, this isn't the first time this has happened. So it's like, here is a JPEG that's attached, not just a word by word. It's a JPEG that goes along with the word by word. Well, then we found people like, "Well, I don't have the map. I didn't see the email." Like, we sent it. Come on.
I don't have the door code. Click the
And what's
link.
so frustrating is our software tells us that yes, they did get the email, and yes, they did open it twice. And now they're calling me saying they can't. Okay, so guess what? That's on me. So here's what we do. We pay for now a software add-on. It's not very expensive, that sends them a text. Okay, so it just says, "You have just been sent an email with important information regarding your check-in and stay at blank." It fills in the name, property. Guess what? You know how many calls that I have gotten recently about, "We can't get in, we can't find it, blah, blah, blah." Probably, I think we got one call over the last, I would say, 1,000 stays.
That's awesome. That's how you
guess
know
what?
your system works.
And they were at the property and saying, "We don't have the code." I'm like, the only way you got to the property is looking at the same document that includes your code. It's beyond standing right behind them. There's not much more I could do on that. And guess what? They found it. They're like, "Oh, we found it. It's in the thing you sent to us 3 times." But my point is this an evolving process. We looked for ways that we can use automation in it. We said, wait, if this problem shows up more than once, that's on me. I need to look for a solution on this. And that solution might be a PDF. It might be a video recording. It might be a JPEG. It might be a checklist. It might be software. It could be, sometimes my wife and I use a free shopping app, literally. And it's a kind of a shared thing. It's not a complicated, like, developer software, which you really need to have if you're doing that kind of action, right? It's just hey, I put something on the shopping list and boom, I'm in the store. It just appears on the shopping list. You can build super simple things like that to share. We've worked with cleaners for our STRs. Of course, they send us the calendar, send us a screenshot of the calendar so that we know when people are checking in. Well, then that gets on us. Like, we have to send them a new screenshot every time somebody books. She's not a fan of that. And so what ended up happening is, among other reasons, we changed our cleaners in one of our markets, and our cleaners now have their own back door into our calendar, and they get an alert every time someone books. So guess what? I'm not sending calendars to that cleaning team. It's part of their SOP. See, they just get that ding. It shows up on their master calendar. They know when to send out the cleaners, and I don't have to be sending it to them. Now, that's not just a convenience for me, like saving my time, like, oh, I don't have to send screenshots of that stuff. What it does is that ups guest satisfaction. We don't get missed cleans then because, oh, I forgot to send a screenshot, or the cleaner looked at my old screenshot because it looks just like the new screenshot, except there was that one overnight stay between those other two people, and they just didn't see it because it's a mass of colors and all this other stuff.
And I'll tell you
So
what,
those
you
are
miss
some
one
examples.
clean when you have a short-term rental guest coming in, and you will implement systems and processes, because even if
The pain is massive.
I remember in Tahoe, my brother had been managing the properties, and one time the clean was missed. Guests got in at 9 o'clock at night. We were 2 blocks away at my house. We said, go grab an appetizer and a drink at the casino. It will be cleaned in the next 30 minutes, and we'll give you, like, we sent them money through the app. And guess who went down there? Oh, we hauled fresh stuff all the way down, and we're cleaning at 9 o'clock at night. Did I want to? Hell no. Did he know I didn't want to? Yes. So yeah, we together implemented systems and processes. And the challenge we have, so we have it automated in Ohio because our cleaners are good enough with technology. We do have problems with tech with our cleaners in Florida and Tahoe.
Yeah.
So what we do is, since we can't get them on the platform and it creates that, we'll let them know as soon as a booking happens and a clean needs to happen so they can put it on their calendar. But every Monday, they will get a list of, here's your cleans for this week. And then again, because weekends are typically higher rates and you would like to be living your weekend as opposed to managing a property, they'll get another message on Friday morning for the weekend cleans just to double check. So yes, it is more manual, but I would much rather do that during business hours during the week than get that call at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday.
And that's an SOP in itself. Every Monday is a thing. Every Friday is a thing. And you make an important point here, is that not everyone is ready to just jump on the level of a process that you are. Maybe they're new to this idea. And it's a human resource issue that you can't just have AI do. You've got to look at this and solve this. It's like, okay, we've got a cleaner in one of our markets. She is not automated, and we have to do the same thing. Do I love it? No. But also, she's the best cleaner we've got, and we will find a way to work with that. But that way to work with that is, in fact, a way, right? It's not haphazard. There's a system that goes into that.
That's right. That's a great point. If the cleaners weren't so on point, if we didn't know, like, we count on them for so many things and they always show up. So if you're telling me your one downside is you don't have technology, we're going to live with that. Now, if you suck at your job and you also don't do technology and you miss stuff, you're out the door. But yes, if you have other strengths and those more than outweigh the annoyance that I have of manually doing something, by all means, we're going to cater to that because it is a two-way relationship. We want the win for ourselves to have a property rented, the win for our cleaning team and handyman team to know they've got plenty of work that they don't have to go elsewhere. And we want the win for the guests so they have a great time. So it's looking at it holistically too.
Yeah, that is key here. Kristi and I are not talking about doing SOPs just so that you have something else to do. This has to have a practical, real world, it has to be a benefit to you and to the people that you work with, whether that's your maintenance team or whether that's your vendors or whether that's your guests or whether that's you, right? Making this a little bit easier on yourself is you have to do that. And let's be honest, sometimes we don't do these things until we have a massive pain point, like you're cleaning at night kind of a situation where you're like, this is not going to happen again. And you know what? I hate to say it, but we humans sometimes don't make a change until it's painful enough. We're like, the pain of not making a change is greater than my friction to make the change. And then once that happens, we're like, fine, that was painful enough. Don't want to do that twice. We go ahead and make the change that we should have made before. And you know what? That's okay. When you hit that point,
case in point, when I created our development software, I didn't create it because I had so much time and I thought, let's get automated. I created it because we had 4 times the amount of work we ever had. My best person was going on maternity leave. I was in the process of letting go some B and C players and hiring A players. So 4 times the work, transitioning team, and I was just like, I have to not be the bottleneck. I have to be able to empower my team. So out of necessity, and yeah, it was an insane year, but it has created a whole future of freedom. And probably the most rewarding wasn't even getting my time back. It was then watching my team members be so empowered that they could lead the charge and they could really be the front person on a project. Yes. And watching them go and grow and be empowered, like that to me was the most awesome outcome of that, which is why I then went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I had done it for development. And I realized that I left the properties and the property management as the redheaded stepchild. I'm like, oh my gosh, Ryan, I am so sorry you've had this really crappy version of this awesome version. I'm going to spend some time on this now. And we did it on the properties. And then I realized, oh crap, we need to do the same thing for all of our accounting systems across the board, across every business. So again, it doesn't need to happen at once. Typically the hardest and most painful pain point is what you're going to tackle first. But being on the flip side, being on the outcome, everyone who's involved wins as a result. And you all then can work together and do the human aspect of running businesses and companies and working with the people.
Right. And that goes to with two books, reminds me of two books. And we'll kind of close with this, is that Marshall Goldsmith wrote a book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And he says at the beginning levels of your career, the things are, showing up, getting things done. Then there's skill. Then your problems kind of go from technical problems. What do I do with these numbers? How do I put these pieces together? Once you rise past that technical level of work, all your problems become people problems, really. And if you're going to scale to any degree and you're not going to be the one in the trenches, swinging the shovel, then if you have other people doing that for you or with you, then your job becomes managing people. And you need to be aware of yourself and how you do that. Good book on that point. Kind of the broad spectrum of SOPs and managing things. It reminds me of the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. He walks through that, which, by the way, the audio version of that book is stellar. He reads it himself, and his between the chapters talks, I think, are better than the chapters themselves. You just don't get it if you just buy the book alone. They're both worth it. But he walks through a lot of these things that you think of, like SOPs can be like, well, it frees me up and I'm the big dog here and I'll have them stay in the trenches. And that keeps them down and keeps them busy. Actually, no, it's what Kristi said, is that this empowers the people, that allows them to do better. And guess what? Who doesn't want to do better? There are a few people, but most people do. They want to do better. And if you give them the tools to be as autonomous as possible and to work as efficiently as possible, they like that too. And so SOPs really done right, everybody wins. You win as the business owner, your vendors win, and your customers and clients win because things move more efficiently. Anything else as we close up here, Kristi?
I think just embracing the fact that it's going to take a little bit of effort, but it's so worth it on the backside.
It is. And as we close, I want to pitch this, is that I believe people ask me all the time about buying STRs. Like, I think I want to buy an STR, vacation rental. Like, do you have a minute? Can I pick your brain? And I remember having a conversation with somebody over a meal, just chatting here and there. And about 2 months later, they said, yeah, well, thanks for your advice. We bought one. I was like, oh no, like that was not the whole picture. This was not like purchasing advice I gave you. It scared me to death. And so what I did.
Did that make you do something?
It did. The pain and honestly, the fear of having not done a good job. I put together STR in an hour, and it literally goes A to Z, all the things you think about, from buy box to how you should look, options for tax things. It's not a tax because it's 59 minutes long, the whole thing. How do you choose a market? How do you figure out income? How do you look at expenses? How do you deal with vendors and management? How do you, all that stuff in 59 minutes is STR in an hour, which is essentially an STR SOP, short-term rental, standard operating procedures. How do I get into this? What things do I consider? So that's what I did. It's STR in an hour. We'll put the link to that in the show notes if you're interested in that kind of a thing, because you miss a point in some of these SOP kind of things. And you're buying a place and you're like, I'm not going to bother with the survey. Wow, that was an important step. And that could be to talk to somebody last week. It turned out their septic field was in somebody else's property. And so these are not small things that you have to think about. So SOPs can be your friend. Don't be afraid of them. And don't be afraid of us. Come back again. We love your feedback. Please send us a message if you want to. Leave us a rating. And the highest compliment you could give to us is send this to a friend or colleague who could benefit from it. We will see you again on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast. Thanks for being our listeners. This podcast is for information and education only and is not professional advice. Please consult a professional specific to your situation when you need it. These are opinions. not legal, accounting, marriage, social, dating, or dietary advice.